Hi guys, it's Steph. Welcome back to my channel. As a few of you might have seen, Winchester University recently put together an event called the Gender Identity and Trans Awareness Symposium, where they had a bunch of people come in to talk about different trans issues. I was lucky enough to be invited to be one of the speakers, which was an amazing opportunity. It's my first time ever doing something like this. It was really exciting. It was so nice hearing stories from so many different kinds of trans people, hearing a bunch of different perspectives, of different journeys and stories. It was also so lovely to see so many friendly faces there. Thank you to everyone who came. And I know there was a live stream of the event, but I know not everyone saw that. So I actually have the footage here for you guys. For anyone that might want to see it, here is my little speech that I did at the Trans Symposium. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Hi everyone, my name's Steph. I'm a writer who loves sushi, puppies and wine, and I'm 5'2" on a good day. And I'm a 23-year-old transgender guy who only realised he was trans less than 2 years ago. Now, there seems to be a repetitive narrative surrounding trans coming out stories. The idea of someone always knowing they were trans is prevalent amongst the trans community. And don't get me wrong, people knowing and embracing who they are from a young age is incredible. But it's important to acknowledge that not all people have this kind of experience. Some trans folk, like me, take a little longer to figure out who we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me, gender identity wasn't something that was really discussed in my house growing up. It's not that my family were against it. If anything, my dad and sister are two of the most accepting people in my life. We just weren't exposed to anything trans-related, so I only started learning about it in school, and that wasn't a brilliant starting point, considering all of the casual homophobia and transphobia that was rife in my school. But at home, I was allowed to pretty much be myself. From the moment I was old enough to choose my own clothes, it was football kits and baggy t-shirts. Despite my mum's many attempts to get me into something girly, I just wouldn't have it. I remember her taking me to my first and only ballet class, in which I refused to wear a tutu and spent the whole lesson bouncing on the trampoline. She gave in eventually with some persuading from my dad, and I was able to wear whatever I felt comfortable wearing after that. I got my first major haircut at the age of 12. Before then, I had long hair that was constantly tied back into a ponytail. I never had the words to describe how I felt about my hair. I just knew that I hated it. I hated it being so long, and I hated how often people commented on it, saying, "You have such beautiful hair, and you should blow your hair down sometimes." The time came when I'd had enough, and my mum reluctantly took it to get it cut. And when I say cut, I mean cut. It went from being halfway down my back to a spiky, shaggy mop that stood up in 100 different directions, and I loved it. Returning to school with a radical new hairstyle was a little scary. Most of the kids were my friends though, and so no one really had an issue with it. One slightly negative memory I have is of some of the kids teasing me by calling me Stefan, which is ironic considering that's the name I ended up choosing to be my new legal name. It confused me that they were calling me a boy, when at the time I didn't know of any other option other than being a girl. But that soon blew over, and I continued dressing in the way that made me happy. There did come a point where I tried once to be the stereotypical girl that people expected me to be. I wore a dress to my 16th birthday party, and I absolutely hated it. I look back on photos from that night, and it's like looking at an entirely different person. I still didn't have the language to express how I was feeling at the time though, so I just shrugged it off as me being a tomboy and carried on. Then, from the age of 16 onwards, I started questioning my sexuality. This played a big part in my gender identity, because it was easy to categorise myself as a typical butch lesbian and leave it at that. But that euphoria was short-lived, because the feelings of discomfort with my own body and gender identity still continued to increase. At 19, I went to uni, and my whole world opened up. I met such a wide array of LGBT+ people, so many of whom talked about feeling the same way I did. Dysphoria, which refers to feeling intense discomfort and sometimes hatred towards part or multiple parts of your body, was something I dealt with for years despite not having a word for it. My chest in particular was something that made me wildly uncomfortable. Then at uni I heard about something called binding, which involves wearing a compression vest that flattens the chest to create a more masculine appearance. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I ordered my first ever binder at the start of my second year at uni, and it honestly changed my life. At this point though, I was still identifying as female. But around the same time I got my binder, I began identifying as non-binary. I was definitely feeling disconnected from my prior female identity, and so an identity in between the binary genders felt like a nice fit for me. And it worked for a while. Side note here, this isn't in any way meant to discredit non-binary people. While it wasn't the right label for me, it's still very valid and real for those who use it. So I identified as non-binary and used gender-neutral pronouns for 2 years, but noticed myself still always leaning very heavily towards the more masculine side of things. I I find myself talking about how I wanted a deeper voice and a permanently flat chest and facial hair. But these thoughts scared me because they pointed to a truth that I wasn't ready to accept yet. Even my friends picked up on it, and a few of them even asking me if I was a transgender man. But the thought was too much at the time and I quickly denied it. But there came a point when I could no longer brush away the truth. It was clinging to my skin and I had to embrace it before it swallowed me up. So I did what every trans person does when they realise their truth. I sat in bed at 3 AM and came out to my sister via a group chat on WhatsApp. Oh, and I told my pet snake, but he didn't seem too bothered about it. Since then, my life has improved drastically. I've come out to my family, including my religious Greek grandparents, who took the news shockingly well. I've changed my name on all of my official documents and have male markers on all of my identification cards. And the most exciting development, after months of waiting and setbacks and worries, I finally started hormone replacement therapy last year. I had my first testosterone shot in November and I've had 2 more since then. And I finally have a little moustache now. So, from coming out as bi at the age of 17, gay at 18, non-binary at 21, and then a trans guy at the age of 23, it's safe to say I've had a few revelations in my life. But the point I really want to make here is that it's okay to not always have things figured out. Whether you know exactly who you are from the moment you can walk, or if you take a while to get there like I did, you're still valid. No matter what, your identity is real and important. Whether you come out once, twice, or 10 times, your journey is yours and yours alone, and no one can take that away from you. Thank you. This is actually my sister's bright idea. Sadly, I did not come up with this myself. She did point out that I uploaded this video about a year ago now, or over a year ago actually, to my YouTube channel, and it kind of says a bit more than what I said in my speech, and just kind of sums it up in a different way. I thought it would also be interesting to see me from a year ago and hear how kind of what I've said might be similar, might be different. So I will show you guys this little video now. I wish I did. Thanks, Kevin. It's insane. Basically, what I see with a lot of LGBT plus people, and especially trans people, is this whole idea of I always knew. So a lot of people I know, and a lot of people I've seen on TV and stories that happens in fiction and in real life, there's always that kind of narrative of I've known since such and such age, since I was 3, since I was 4, since I was 10, whatever. There's always some sort of like I always knew story behind a lot of trans people, which is fine. I'm pleased for all of them that knew from a young age. I'm like, good for you, you can spend longer living as your true self. That's freaking amazing. But I feel like what's not spoken about enough is the people that don't realise it straight away. People who don't realise until they're 22, or people that, you know, don't realise until they're 34 or 72, or, you know, you get people of all ages coming out and realising things about themselves. It's just not spoken about a lot, and it doesn't really come up in any form of media either. You know, in movies and films, it's always, oh yeah, he's always been that way since I can remember, or, you know, she's always been like that since she was tiny. Well, for some people, that isn't the case. For me, personally, it was kind of obvious for years, people that I was a trans dude, but I just didn't know. I got to 17, and I thought I was bisexual, so I came out as bi. Then 18, I was like, no way, I'm gay. Then I was happily, you know, a gay, just butch woman for like about 3 years. Then during second year of uni, I was like, oh wait, hold on, I think I'm non-binary. And then for about 2 years, I identified as non-binary and still presenting as male. I was presenting as male since the age of like 7, you know, or like definitely wearing male clothes, and I always had very short hair. And then people used to mistake me for a boy all the time, even when I was like 10. But I just never, I know, it never occurred to me like, oh wait, like I am a boy. Until 2 years after I've been identifying as non-binary, I kind of realised like, wait a second. But I just had like what we call a eureka moment where I kind of realised, oh wait, hold on. I realised that I'm a guy. But I think people just don't talk about that enough. I've had people then come to me and say, oh, like, I feel like I've missed out, I feel like I'm really late, because you know, you have these kids that 5 and 10 and 14 all realising, and then you have, you know, us late bloomers
there's nothing wrong with taking your time to realise things. Like every time I've come out, everyone's kind of gone, yes, then we all knew, just waiting for you to tell us. Which is fine. I appreciate that. I also appreciate people not trying to pressure me and rush me into things, because I feel like if someone had said to me beforehand, you're a trans dude, I would have been like, no. That would freak me out. So I'm glad I could get there in my own time. I'm comfortable. I came to terms with it and then told people, well, 98% of the people I told were like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, Steph's a trans dude, water is wet, what else is new? Which is quite a nice reaction, to be honest. Like, I'd rather that than have people like feel shocked and up in arms. Like, it's quite nice that people go, yeah, this makes sense, and you're now going to be living as your true self, and that's awesome. Kind of a message to anyone who's maybe like still closeted or still just figuring things out or just doesn't want to tell people yet for some reason. Like, that's okay. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to be out because, you know, younger people are. You just do you, take your time. I think there just needs to be a bit more discussion about, you know, not all of us knew after we exited the womb. It must have took a few years to get there, but we did it, and yeah, that's about it, really. That's all I want to say. Also, exciting bit of news, I changed my name by default today, so I'm still going to be going by Steph, you know, because that's how everyone knows me and I'm cool with that name, but for all legal purposes, my official name now is Stefan, but Steph Kyriacou, and I'm very happy with that, and it has a nice ring to it, I think. So yeah, that's made me happy. So I hope you guys are having a good day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
That was interesting for you guys. That was really weird. That was like a year ago, and I'm like, the name change. And I'm like, that's really weird. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe this gave you guys a bit of insight, and I hope I did overall right job.
So there was the speech. Hope I didn't make too much of a fool out of myself. I was pretty nervous getting up there. That's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you're having a good day, evening, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you soon. Bye.